Hey, you guys, this is Matt Turk today, and today I've got some very special guests with me. I've got Rob and Nate, and today we are talking home insurance. So let's get into it. I'm excited to have you guys. This has been, full disclosure, this has been something in the works between our schedules and trying to get things together, but I'm really excited to have you guys on here. So, yeah, let's get into it. All right, so I would say the vast majority of our audience recognizes your faces, but for those few that don't know, what do you guys do? And tell me about how you got started in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks, Matt, for having Rob and I here today. We're super pumped to be able to sit down with you and talk a little bit about, what we do. Ultimately, I think it's been 13, 14 years since I've been, I guess you could say, in the insurance business. I started out shortly after I graduated from college. I had worked for an agent for a handful of years, and then about 8 years ago, opened my own agency. And so the question to say, why did I get into it? Well, it wasn't something that I thought about coming out of college that, hey, I want to get into insurance. I hadn't thought about it at all, to be quite frank. But there was a family friend who was on the corporate side with State Farm and just looking to recruit some people, to work for some other agents. And, we had coffee and I looked at the opportunity. I thought it was a good fit. Didn't know it was going to be my career path. But after working into it for a few years, I realized, hey, this is something that I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. And a big piece to, what do we do, right? Ultimately, we protect your money and your property. We're here to have in-depth conversations about, hey, what are your risks? And are there any gaps or concerns? And at that point, if there is, we make a recommendation. And so it's really given us, as the years have, gone on, I would say our biggest piece is just trying to uncover those things that people don't realize, because it can be very much if you want it to be, it can be very transactional, whatever line of insurance we're talking about. But if we're really going about it the right way and offering a service to our customers, it's about really digging in deeper to find out where those gaps are, right? Because sure, you can call a 1-800 number and get a quote and get something in place at a snap of a finger, right? Yep. But ultimately, you're not getting that true full service if, making sure that those gaps are taken care of most of the time. And ultimately, most of us don't like paying for our insurance, myself included, but we want it to be there in the time of loss. Right. Sure. And so one of the big things that we really emphasize on is, giving the right information to our clients to be able to make that educated decision for them and their family.
Awesome. We met for lunch, what seems like years ago, but it was about a month and a half ago. We were talking about how it's really important to kind of educate people and ultimately help them make the decision if we're doing our jobs correctly. Rob, tell me a little bit about how you got to come to be with Nate. How did you arrive here?
Yeah, I'd seen Nate was hiring. I'd known them a little bit, him and his wife, Mia, from the wrestling community, and decided, hey, why not? Let's give it a shot. Came in, slowly learning here. Right, Nate?
No, he's doing really that first year is a grind, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much to take in. And by all means, Rob's kicking butt and doing a great job.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I think it's been eye-opening, but I enjoy taking the time, sitting down, going over everything with everybody, making sure they understand exactly what they have in place and what, is at risk. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I enjoy it.
Like, I can see joy when somebody loves what they do. You can see it. You can kind of feel that. Hey, I'm engaged and I love what I do because I love helping people. But I might be stepping on the toes of our next question, which is like, tell me, why do you guys love what you do? Because clearly you do.
That's a really good question. I'm glad you bring it up, because I do truly love what I do. And I think that's something that all of us try to find or chase, of, making something more than just a job. Right. And For me, there's a lot of different reasons, but ultimately, as corny as it may sound, a big piece is knowing that when we have these right conversations, that I know that they're going to be able to walk away. And if they put the right things in place, or even if they didn't, at least they had the knowledge or the education of what they should do, is that, hey, we're taking care of people. I'm not naive to think I understand it's insurance, right? It's not fun to pay for, yet I'm not going to pretend it's something that it's not. But at the same time, there are some really crucial things when we dig into it, whether it be your homeowners, your auto, your life insurance, your disability, your business, that are life-changing things that make a big difference in people's day-to-days. And that's why we talk about protecting that money and property. So that piece of it, I mean, all the great people we get to meet, the conversations we get to have, they become real relationships, right? And that's a big part of where my office was, in Orono Long Lake area before. Awesome area, loved it out there. But we had moved to Waconia. And one of the biggest things was always we wanted to have our business in the town that we lived in. And not that we don't service people across the state, we do. But being involved in that community where we live was extremely important. So, I mean, to the second half of that is we find a ton of joy of being involved in the community. Right. And that's important. And for our whole office, right? That is one of our key things is, we're always looking to grow, right? We want to retain what we have, but that joy of being in the community, if we can help anyway, doing fun things, fun events, that brings a lot of joy to me personally.
Awesome. Right. Awesome. And I'll just add on to that. When I was looking into working for Nate, I had seen what they were doing in the community, and that kind of drew me in. I love getting out there, nickel dickle day, interacting with everybody.
And you guys talk about that community piece, and I think that that's super important. And I think that that's another reason why when we sat down and had some coffee together, we realized that like this is a good fit because we do support our community. One of my favorite memories I just wanted to share was the first time our family ever did the Easter egg hunt, and that was intense. It was so much fun. You talked about Rob's son being involved with the community event. I believe Max was involved at one point. I don't want to give away the secret, but Max was involved in one of the first Easter egg event I was a part of.
He may or may not have been involved of not being or being the Easter egg, or not the Easter
allegedly.
Egg, the bunny, allegedly, who knows? Countless hours of pictures. And
again, we circle back just a little bit to kind of why we love what we do, and it's really helping people. So if we had someone watching here who has questions about insurance, what is something you would want folks to know? What is an important piece of your job that you need folks to know about?
It's pretty simplistic in the sense of you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you haven't sat down with an agent to take the time to really comb through your policies, because they're not all created equal. And if somebody's not bringing out potential gaps or concerns, you may not have something that you need or that you're aware of, right? So it really comes down to choice. And that's what we hone in on, is that we want to give you all the options, talk about potential gaps, and you're going to make that decision. So, I mean, what I would say is ultimately making sure that you're just taking some time, whether it be review with your current agent or if you're looking for new businesses, whether it be via Zoom or in person, is, taking 30 minutes to really comb through, because it is really easy to just renew and not dig deeper into it. And one thing that we always say is, as life changes, your insurance needs change. And there's so much truth to that on, whether it be your home or your car or life insurance or disability, those will change with time. And so if you're not, doing a review or digging into it, there's probably a good chance you've got a gap. And the other thing too, especially in the industry right now, in the homeowners specifically, there's a ton of changes going on. Anyone that's listening to this, probably if they've opened a home renewal, which sometimes people don't, will realize that premiums have gone up. And we're very fortunate in a sense with State Farm, our financial strength and being a mutual company, that we're very well positioned to our competitors. But that doesn't mean we weren't immune either to some rate. But a bigger piece to that is, yes, companies have taken rate, but also companies have changed their policies on how they work. And as us living here in the state of Minnesota, everyone's well aware that we get hit by a ton of hail, right? And that is by far the number one claim. And there are a lot of companies that are changing how their policy works. And you're typically probably not going to get a phone call saying, hey, guess what? You had replacement costs on your roof, but now that it's 10 years old, 15 years old, it's an actual cash value policy. And even by me saying that, well, most people, what does that mean, right? And so there are big things that your policy that you took out 5 years ago might not be the policy that it is today. And so there's a lot of great companies out there. There is. Obviously, I'm biased, and I do believe State Farm is the best company out there. But what I will say is we have done a really good job with our homeowners policies. I know that's what we're talking about a little bit more specifically today. Through this crazy last couple of years of insurance, because insurance companies have been beat up pretty bad. And we've kept our policy, and we've actually added some extra endorsements and things that can even allow for some more coverage. And so on that front of it, Rob and I can stand here, I would say pretty confidently, when we sit down with people, that what we're offering you is solid, is comprehensive.
I love it. When we sat down and had a meal together, you had talked about, on the real estate side of things, typically when we get involved is like, hey, I need to get the lowest possible policy I possibly can to get approved for this home. And that's just my experience with it. But you made a really good point at that lunch to say, look, a lot of folks don't know that maybe that roof isn't completely covered. Maybe they're kind of exposed. And, at the time, people are like, hey, I just want this policy because I like this price. They don't necessarily know that it doesn't make sense. So again, from kind of what you're saying and just echoing what you're saying is review the policy, make sure to ask questions to your agent. And if you don't have an agent who's kind of actively working with you, maybe you got to call one of these guys.
Yeah, we'd like that.
Absolutely. Nothing Nate loves more than doing reviews.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm the review guy, and Rob's the revenue guy.
Yes,
yeah.
But again, that's the difference between somebody who you call a 1-800 number or if you get someone in our community, right? Like that's the difference. And that's why, we are such a great community, is because we try to look out for each other as best we can. So
we want to be a source for when people do have questions. That premium, if it does go up or you're in an accident, where we are, how to get a hold of us, and know that, between, what do we got? 5 of us, right? Five. Myself, Mia, Rob, Andy, and Kelsey. We're here for you. And
right. So just like with any other profession, any other interview, you guys have been in this, you've seen it all, with a case maybe that you're willing to share. And again, take this for what you will. Give me an example of an extreme kind of situation or case that comes to mind in regards to coverage and, kind of what is a memorable moment in your job?
It's a great question, Matt. Well, we once, it's happened twice, but one was a bigger claim than the other. We had a situation, years ago where a couple was gone and they had a few cats, and the cat turned on the sink and came back, and it flooded the whole house. I mean, that's a crazy. I mean, I guess when you ask that question,
that's pretty good. Yeah, that's a good.
I think about initially, like I said, I'm not sure specifically what answer you're looking for. But like, I think of the farmers, I hate to mention the competition, but the farmers commercials, right? You see the deer running in the house, or you have these crazy kind of claims. Like, yeah, I guess they're real. That's one I think of, a cat one, but there isn't, I guess I turn the dial, and I hate to make it more sombering right now, but I mean, truly, just being completely honest, it's about the ones that where they didn't have the coverage that that they should have. And so and not we do a really good job, I feel, and I'm prideful, I guess, of my office and ourselves on how we go about these conversations, whether, it's not making sure that they're fully making the decisions, and we don't make them for them, but we always look back when situations arise, whether that be a loss of a loved one, or someone got injured and they can't work anymore, or a claim on their auto in their home, right? There's so many levels of different kind of claims.
Yep.
We look back and did we do a good enough job explaining this and making sure they knew their options? And I do feel like we do that. And especially as we've grown as 8 years of having our own agency, I'll let Rob speak on that, because it's easy for me to say that's what I think we do as an office, as the owner. But I truly believe that has been a focus day in, day out of addressing those conversations, making sure that when people walk away, that whether they chose to change their coverage or take a different product out, that we at least had that conversation.
Yes.
And now we can, as corny as it sounds, but we can go to bed and sleep on it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And that's no different than my industry, right? Yep. Full disclosure, nobody wants to talk about the worst case scenarios, but I don't sleep unless you know what the worst case scenario is, because sometimes I am Murphy's Law guy. So absolutely, that's the best way to operate.
On a different note, it's not specifically insurance, but it has to do with our business. And we touched base a little bit on our Easter egg hunt, but I'm going to throw this out there because it's coming up again.
Yeah,
but this is our third annual Easter egg hunt, which we partnered with Trinity on this. And just how that all came to fruition.
Yes.
It's a pretty cool deal. And without going through the full backstory of it, essentially 2 years ago, we had our first Easter egg hunt, and we didn't know what to expect. Here, there had to have been minimally 500, if not, up to 1,000 people there. And we were shocked on that. We were we get a couple hundred people, it'd be pretty good, and build. And so, it was a beautiful day. It was 60 degrees. And so, that was a huge success, right? All right, let's make some changes and go from 4,000 eggs to 10,000 eggs next year, so we don't have an issue. And then last year, we had a snowstorm. So we're minutes before days before, what are we going to do? Are we going to go here and start shoveling the park? Are we
just throw in the snow?
Do we have it in the gym? But that sort of takes away from it a little bit, we thought.
It was pretty entertaining to watch. Try to figure that
Scramble.
out.
Yeah, Rob was there for a week. I'm just pounding my head against the wall. And
we're going to go down there and trample down all the snow.
Yeah, those are ideas we were throwing out there. Hey, we hired the wrestling team to clear everything out. And nothing was off limits. And then we finally just said, you know what, let's roll with it. And that was so cool. We had 10,000 Easter eggs spread out in the snow, and we had 1,000 people show up for the Easter egg hunt. And so that was really cool, and we're looking forward to rain, snow, and shine. It's happening again. So that's our plug. So come to our Easter egg hunt.
Oh my gosh.
Those of you looking forward to seeing me there, I won't be. I'll be at a state wrestling tournament, unfortunately, right? It always kind of lands on that weekend.
Oh, this is as good as a transition as we're going to get into wrestling. So I guess I should say today's wardrobe is provided by Kelly Catherman. So, ta-da.
Shout out to Kelly.
Well, exactly. This is my favorite move, and yes, it is always there. So it's always there. Coach Turek, shut up, Coach Turek. So tell me real quick, Rob, I want to talk to you real quick about your son's journey into wrestling. I've had the honor to coach your son and to see him kind of grow and develop, and just really, really cool to kind of see him come around, and just a hard worker, an absolute. We're very lucky to have him in our wrestling room. Truthfully,
thank you. Appreciate that. So I actually grew up playing hockey. Never watched a wrestling match in my entire life.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. A friend at school talked him into going to the wrestling free clinic. And since that day, he's like, all right, wrestling it is. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. I'll figure it out as we go here. But yeah, no, great sport. I've absolutely fallen in love with it. He refuses to quit. This year, you know, as you've seen, he's struggled a little bit, but has never given up. I think it prepares these young men for life after wrestling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I love about, you know, our sons is that they're not terribly gifted. I know your son Clay is a fantastic baseball player, so I'm told. Lucas and Oliver, this is it. So, and they're not, you know, they're kind of like their old man. They're gonna probably peak a little early, but I think the one thing that wrestling kind of teaches kids is that, like, you could go on to be a wrestling coach at a program or at a club, but wrestling is really just molding children into men, and how you go through adversity and how you push through challenges. And, you know, wrestling is not a fun sport. You're going to lose and it's going to be just you on the mat, right? But that accountability is something special. So, yeah, it truly has been an honor having him in our wrestling room.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Nate, you know a thing or two about wrestling. I don't know. Why don't you, tell me about a half Nelson or whatever you know about wrestling.
Well, yeah, that was many weight classes ago. Yeah, well, I mean, just Daco, Rob, and yourself. I mean, man, it's a great sport, right? And as I look through my tenure, you know, starting as a second grader wrestling, all the way through college, and having enough time away from, I don't know what I graduate. Well, it was many moons ago, 2010. So 13 years, it's given me time over those years to really have a perspective like, well, what did wrestling do for me? And it is what you said. It helped me become a better father, a better husband, better business owner. I mean, just that work ethic, that grind, because life's tough, right? It's really tough. You get kicked down, but the key is getting back up. And, you know, when you go in, I mean, I'm still involved with wrestling, right? I mean, my kids wrestle, and been in and out of the wrestling room over the past 5 years. And, you know, you just see that grit and that grind, you know, in those kids. And whether you wrestle, I always say, whether you wrestled 1 year or 20 years, you get it.
Yeah.
Right? You get it.
As a personal side, I remember I graduated in 2002. So yeah, my gray hair is betraying me, but I remember you. Yes. I remember Nate Matousek winning state as a freshman from Glencoe, right? It was Glencoe. And I was like, what is going on?
Not quite freshman, sophomore. I love that.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, like you said, many moons ago.
Oh man, I just really cool. Kind of again getting to know you, because again, you were just back then was a name. Back when I was in high school, it was like you go to the guillotine, right? And you see the rankings and see where you're at. And there was always this guy from Glencoe, and I'm like, what is going on out there? There's this like absolute machine out there. So and again, I don't want to kind of replay glory days too much, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask about your time in college wrestling, because that's a whole nother level. I never got to that level, but
it was great. I mean, when I look back on that, and honestly, that's probably, I mean, I've had growth, you know, as a human through all levels of wrestling, but college especially, you know, my youth wrestling days and high school wrestling days, I thought went pretty well. I mean, and then got the opportunity and got recruited to wrestle at University of Minnesota, and was a part of some really good teams. You know, won national title as a team, runner up, and so we were always in the mix, right? Battling. So it was a great era. Always good to be a Gopher, but it was really good to be a Gopher when you know, it takes a few years to step away from that, and then you know, wrestling's always going to be a part of my life, but I wouldn't say that's my identity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the things that I grabbed from wrestling are a big piece of who I am.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was some of the guys, I'm still great friends with guys on my team, still in close contact with majority of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And heck, one of them married my sister. So it's just like it is on the youth level, high school level, college level. It's a family.
Yeah. Yep.
And everyone knows that in the
Yep.
wrestling community.
Yeah. And again, also no shortage of compliments on your side of things. I've got to watch and coach your kids. Max, I'll never forget his sixth grade season at state. Played hero quite a few times. Got to wear the Superman cape. I've actually literally wrestled Blake, who is not weak, for those wondering. So yeah, you guys, just as husbands and fathers, and your kids, I can attest that you guys have done a great job, and it's been just a pleasure to get to know you guys. So appreciate you being on this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know at this point, our audience is like, are we wrestlers? Are we insurance guys? Are we selling houses? What are we doing today? I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I've certainly enjoyed filming this. Guys, this won't be our last one, but for our first one, this has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.